Got 10 minutes? Welcome to Anchored Web, smart tips to grow your business online.
Okay, here's an interesting one. I had somebody in this area actually suggest another topic for this podcast, and that's that I should talk about passwords. So for some business owners, hey, we can go into the history of passwords and and all that stuff, the encryption levels that are important. But for business owners, you probably don't care about that as much as you just care about, hey, how do I make sure that my passwords are kept safe? How do I keep my workers from writing them on Post-it notes? And how do I, just make sure that I'm not doing something that is foolish, but I'm not the expert, so how do I know? Well, okay, I'm a bit of an expert. I get security certification from a company called TEKsystems. They teach me about that. So I'll tell you what I kind of know about it. There's a lot of reasons why people write passwords on Post-it notes or make them too easy to be secure. And it's just a matter of convenience. Most people are not trying to spend a lot of time and just don't have enough bandwidth in their day to memorize a complicated string of characters. So if you have, as a company, if you have passwords that you need your employees to have, you do need to set certain guidelines and rules, and then you also should educate them a little bit. But by setting the guidelines and sort of the requirements for your passwords, it kind of eliminates those things from being able to happen because it becomes less convenient to write it on a sticky note or whatever. You can't really stop people from doing that if that's just their method. And so we'll go into how to work security even if that's going to happen. So how to make it less convenient for them to just write a Post-it note is to have passwords that are easy for a person to recognize or easy for people to memorize, but hard for a computer to guess. And that is relatively new-ish advice for how passwords are made compared to, 10 years ago or more. That we want passwords that are really long, like 24 or 32 characters long, but are easy readable words. The advice used to be you want super complex with a bunch of symbols and stuff. Now it's just like, let's string together three really unimportant words, disconnected words together. And then let's add a couple of special characters, maybe in between those words, or swap a couple of the characters for special characters. And then let's have that as our password, write that down, keep that somewhere safe. And that length of the password with some special characters makes it really hard for a computer program to go through, because every additional character in line adds an exponential payload or workload of guessing it has to do. And so you can really make it close to impossible for a computer if you just make it long. And so if it's just words we know that you guys know, then that's one way to do that. With that said, another thing that you can do is you can set a lot of these a lot of these accounts that you may have to reset the password every so often automatically, or ask for it to be reset. So by doing that, setting it to reset every so often means that the note that they wrote down becomes irrelevant after 30 days. And then if they're writing it over and over again, they start to figure out they need to not write it down, but maybe keep it somewhere else. You have to have the password somewhere, right? So there are password managers, LastPass, and browsers have them. And I'm not really usually someone who tries to, be too picky about which one you use. Obviously, look into it. If you're going to use a password management system, look into its security. I've seen or heard of some of these pretty major password managers getting hacked. And I really don't know because I don't necessarily use them, but I am not sure to what extent they've been hacked and what kind of passwords are out there. But it's just any system you use, you want to take a look for that. Okay. So I do want to mention another thing that you can do to help the password situation in your business is to, and maybe this sounds dreaded or something, but to enable two-factor authentication. It's really not that hard. I don't know. Of course, if you work with somebody like me, I can walk you through it and make sure that it's all being done correctly. But one trick I want to talk about that I don't hear other people mention about two-factor authentication in terms of like a business with multiple employees who all, I have clients who, multiple people, multiple departments need to access something. So when I'm starting up a new account and I'm suggesting two-factor authentication, sometimes it comes up, hey, I don't want to be the only person. I'm the boss here, but I don't want to be bothered on a random day for my code every time somebody needs to sign in. At the same time, I do care about security. I understand the importance of two-factor. I just don't want to have my phone be the only one. Well, a little trick you can do is you can, when you're setting up, and it's not the easiest, but it can be done. When you're setting up two-factor authentication on a lot of these, they give you a QR code that you scan through your authentication app. While that QR code is on there, while you're doing the setup, you've just signed in and you're activating two-factor authentication for the first time on that account. That QR code is there. Anybody who scans that QR code while it's on screen right then and there is able to have the same codes appear on their device. So you got different employees with different devices, and I don't know how you manage devices for your company, but if they all scan that right in that moment, if they're physically present or able to scan that QR code, then they can also activate their two-factor authentication with it. It has to be authenticated through that QR code. Somebody has to go ahead and put the code in to get it going, which is probably you, but anybody else who had scanned it in that moment is also getting the same codes. Okay. Obviously, you don't want to have multiple devices out there with two-factor authentication to an important account. So, it has to be trusted devices. But that is one way you can have the best of both worlds if it's a trusted employee and you know that they're going to need it. So for all practical reasons, you need that to happen. Of course, if I were you, I would also have some sort of internal policies about that include addressing the password situation. Like I said, I put together the passwords for clients sometimes where I spend just time at the beginning of the project getting all the passwords together so I can present them to them and say, here's how you get into everything. Once we're there, then the question becomes, how do you manage it? And I think not only having a management system, but also having an onboarding and offboarding process that includes the password part for employees is important. So you have a manager and you've given them two-factor authentication, but then they leave the company. It shouldn't be forgotten that they have access to that. So you need to also incorporate passwords, not just as a afterthought, but actually put it into your protocols. So that's what I would say about that. The last thing I would say about passwords is that passwords themselves are kind of going away soon. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I've been hearing rumblings about it. Even though I said you want to have a long password so computers can't guess or have a harder time guessing it, computers are getting faster and faster, and there's some breakthroughs in computing technology that are happening all the time that are threatening this whole idea of random string of things that you type in to gain access to your account. That whole idea of passwords is sort of, people are realizing we need things like two-factor authentication in order to have truly have security. Well, you might have heard of YubiKeys, or, these sort of USB sticks that you put in to your physical device. You physically put into your device, and then you are tapping it in order for your computer to know that, that's your password now. Instead of typing a password in, you have a physical key. So that's something that's coming up too. So it's not your fault if you feel like you're having issues with passwords, because passwords as a whole concept is kind of, I don't know, I would say it's kind of broken, and there's some fixes coming along, and it's going to take a while. So in the meantime, that's my advice to you if you're a business owner. All right, that's it for now. So again, if you have any suggested topics, just let me know. I'll see you next time.
Book time for free at anchoredweb.com/booking. No pressure.